Hi there. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can.
Okay, great. It's okay. No, I'm leaving in a little bit less than an hour, but I've got all my stuff packed. So hopefully hopefully I won't have forgotten anything. Okay, sure. Going to Toronto to present a paper on criminalizing residential school denialism at the Canadian Political Science Association conference.
That's not
Yes, it will be. Yes, I can't wait.
without any spoilers. Can you give me kind of a
Oh, there's no spoil. I've
nutshell?
already posted the paper, so there's no
Oh,
spoilers. Um, I'm analyzing the academics who are focusing on this accusation and showing that it doesn't really make a lot of sense, the charge, because it's never clear as to what, like Sean Carlton, who you're probably familiar with, who's a professor at University of Manitoba. He's the main person making this accusation. And of course, Leah Gazan, who's the MP who wants to criminalize it. He says it is about, distorting or denying basic facts to try to impede truth and reconciliation. But it's never very clear what the basic facts that are being denied are. And then I go in to talk about how most of this has to do with the relativization of truth that is going on in the universities and the wider society, and the demand that you must accept the spiritual beliefs or the subjective beliefs, I guess, of what's called survivors. And this results in the destruction of the academic mission of the university and intimidates people and stops people from being able to discuss the residential schools in a rational way.
Now you're particularly well suited to this because I googled your name a little bit. I
Okay.
didn't look very much, but I saw that you are an academic
Yes.
and you were fired, and I think you got the right to get your job back. But I don't know. Can you explain to me kind of like what your background is and where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I've been studying Aboriginal policy for 30 years, starting with the Northwest Territories. And then I was in the academic realm for about 25. And then I started studying the residential schools in earnest in 2016, just after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report was released. And that's what really led, along with the trans activism matters, led to the poisoning of my workplace by my colleagues and eventually resulted in an academic mobbing, which took place over 2020 to 2021. And because I was responding to an Indigenous scholar activist who was trying to get me fired, whose name is Gabrielle Weaselhead, the university decided she was a prize indigenization asset, and she felt unsafe by me making arguments about the residential schools not being genocidal. And so I was the arbitrator found that I had been wrongfully terminated. But because Gabrielle Weaselhead and the other Indigenous scholar activists feel unsafe by me being at Mount Royal, that I shouldn't be reinstated because of that. And now the case is being appealed before the Labor Relations Board. It's going to the appeal in December of this year. We are appealing it. The Mount Royal Faculty Association, the Canadian Association of Universities Teachers, and they're appealing it. And my position is I will not give 1,000th of an inch on this. I need to be reinstated. I must be reinstated. And if I am not, universities are over, because I should never have been subjected to the terrible treatment that I received. And it was all done because of the intrusion of equity, diversity, and inclusion ideology into Mount Royal University, which used to be a wonderful institution. When I started there in 2008, it was an incredible academic institution that was trying to justify its academic situation. So I basically watched that institution be destroyed. And I am fighting for that institution with everything I have, as well as, I think it's ridiculous that I can't be reinstated, as the problem lies with, the whole oppressed groups, groups who perceive to be oppressed, whose identities must be affirmed, all this kind of language, which really results in the academic mission of the university being completely corroded and eventually just eliminated.
That's really interesting. Um, so Mount, when's the last time you worked? Was it 2021?
Yeah, so I was fired in December 2021.
Okay. Okay. So since then, um, I mean, have you been making films? Is that fair to say, or what? I want
Uh,
to get to what brought you here, but
yeah, so I started that. I started doing videos. I guess a couple years ago. I was doing it. I was doing my own videos, very kind of amateurish kind of stuff on
yeah,
my case, like largely on my case, but also on academic freedom and the Kamloops case and trans activism. So those are my main. I'm also kind of interested in the Israel-Palestine conflict because that to me is another major, like the pro-Palestinian, academics are under fire as well and are not defended by the people who think that trans activism and the residential schools should be criticized. So there's kind of an interesting split in the
so
universities.
you're interested in the academic aspect.
Exactly. And defending those academics who want to state what they think is true, regardless of their political positions on anything. Like the university, you have to be able to discuss any idea. Anyway, so
Yeah.
this is the kind of videos I was doing. And then when I got into the Kamloops case, I was contacted by, and I was doing some videos with Daniel Page, who's a videographer from Manitoba. And we did a couple on a spectrum street epistemology session at the University of Regina, and then one on my case, Mount Royal University Murders Academic Freedom. And then with the Kamloops material, I was contacted by Simon Hergott, who is used to work for Global News and was fired from Global News for opposing various forms of coverage. Anyway, we sort of got talking and we decided we would start doing some
I know Simon, actually.
good. Yeah. Yeah. So he's the videographer. He's an absolutely excellent videographer, amazing talent. Anyway, he did an incredible coverage of Pell River, the Pell River situation, and how it relates to the Kamloops announcement that was made in 2021. So the effects on Pell River, the town, that was What Remains. It was the documentary called What Remains. And now we're taking sort of the insights that we got from that, and we're doing a broader documentary on the Kamloops case, which we did some shooting of for last week. I guess it was last week now, or maybe a week and a half ago. Yeah.
Okay. So what's kind of I watched the trailer, which is on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
What's can you kind of give me in a nutshell kind of what the movie's about or what the film's about?
Yeah. So the film is about, to some extent, the destruction of truth. So the destruction of the idea of truth, which has now become relativized. And so the idea is that you must believe certain people, indigenous survive genocide, people who claim that they're survivors of genocide. And as a result of this kind of mentality, the need to believe without evidence, it has caused massive institutional failure from a huge number of institutions, which include the RCMP, the school board, the journalists, the area of journalism, which you're probably very interested in, Thompson Rivers University. So Thompson Rivers University is a major area of investigation, and I would like that to be the focus myself because I'm interested in the academic freedom side. And we did a spectrum street epistemology session at Thompson Rivers University on May 27th. It was incredible. It's just been posted on YouTube last night. And we were basically confronted by three safety people in charge of safety, and they tried to get us to leave campus instead of doing this event. And we stood our ground and told them that we were going to do this event because this event was consistent with the academic mission of Thompson Rivers University. And Thompson Rivers University has been doing absolutely terrible things. The president of that university, Brett Fairbairn, has been, basically saying that the remains of 215 children, he continues to say that those remains have been found, talking to Ted Gottfriedson on the occasion of September 2023. So he is actively spreading false information to professors and students. And these safety personnel were saying that since we're on the house of the Tecumlips, it would be inappropriate for us to discuss whether or not the remains of 215 children have been found. And I could not believe what I was hearing from this safety person. And evidently this was done on the authority of the executive of Thompson Rivers University. So my preference, we haven't actually shaped the documentary yet. We have a whole bunch of footage, but I would really like to see Thompson Rivers University as the focus of this documentary, since I think there's a lot of substance to the ridiculous things that have been happening at that university.
That's interesting. I want to talk about that, but first, just about this the event on campus. What was that? I don't want to call it a confrontation because I don't know what it was like. But when they came up and asked you guys to leave,
Yep.
How did that go? What was the tone? How was it? What was the vibe?
The vibe was, we're in charge, we're the authorities, and we would like you to leave. And we were just saying back to them, we're not going anywhere. And you do what you need to do, but and if I have to get arrested about this, I will, and then this will have serious reputational damage for Thompson Rivers University if it does trespass us, because the university is failing, massively failing, because it has all these Indigenous activists who are on staff there, including Ted Gottfriedson Jr. and Gary Gottfriedson. They have a law professor by the name of Nicole Chavez, who was interviewed by Kathy Drake, who's a student. She used to be a student at Mount Royal and was pushed out of Mount Royal because of her posts on her personal posts on social media. So, and she's a freedom of expression absolutist. So she's got a lot of, she's got a lot of courage as well. Anyway, that's all a totally bizarre situation as well. These professors who are continuing to claim that the remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops site, which is completely false, this claim. We just have GPR, anomalies, and there's no names of Aboriginal children who went missing. And there's all sorts of problems with this claim. Anyway, so the vibe was, we're telling you to do this. We expect you to follow our commands. And we said, we are protecting the academic mission of Thompson Rivers University. You are failing. We are not going anywhere. You do what you have to do, but we're doing this event. And then they just disappeared.
And did the cops ever show up?
No.
Did they call the cops?
No, they just disappeared because they realized it would not look good for Thompson Rivers University to be removing people who are just trying to have a discussion about whether the unmarked graves have been found. And that's what we were talking about. And we got a great conversation between a woman by the name of Jenna and a man by the name of Hal. And Hal strongly disagreed with the claim the remains of 215 children have been found, and Jenna strongly agreed with that claim. And we had a perfectly civil and very interesting discussion with everyone considering the arguments of the other kind of opposite position. And we agreed at the end of it all that excavations were needed on that site. Like, that's how we were going to make a determination about whether the remains of 215 children have been found. And the band has received $12.1 million for excavations. And why have those excavations not been done? If they are not done, that is taking money for something that is not supposed to be used for. and that money should be returned to the government if those excavations are not going to be done. But it is 4 years now that we've been waiting for these excavations. Ted Gottfriedson Jr. and Manny Jules have both stated that there would be what they called exhumations, but of course you need to excavate to determine whether there's actually remains there. So that has to be done first, and we're waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
Yes.
I want to go back to TRU.
Yeah.
And I know I kept you a little bit longer than I said I would, but
It's okay. No, I've got time, so we can continue.
TRU, you said you're thinking of making it maybe the focus or focus of this.
Yes.
What are some of the questions? I guess maybe where do you see that going, or what are some of the questions that you want to answer?
Why is Thompson Rivers University trying to impose a prescribed doctrine, which is the remains of 215 children being found and other things that they are arguing on its professors and students? What is its, how does it think, what does it mean? And this is an interesting thing that the head of safety, I believe his name was Steve Pottle, he said, you're on the house of the Tecumsehs, and therefore what you're doing is inconsistent with the values of Thompson Rivers University. That was kind of what he said. And we were asking, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to be on the house of the Tecumsehs? And what does that mean for the discussion, the open discussion? And basically, it seemed to mean because the Aboriginal group is upset about this conversation happening and thinks that they should just be believed, you shouldn't be able to talk about that at Thompson Rivers University. That seemed to be what was being said. And I think if that is the case, that means Thompson Rivers University is no longer an academic institution and should not be receiving public funding as an academic institution. So that institution is seriously corroded and captured by the indigenization agenda. And I'd really like that to be the focus. Sorry. It's okay.
A couple times that, like what you just said about TRU would stop being an academic institution. You said the same thing about, maybe not about Mount Royal, but earlier when you were talking about that, you said it would be the end of universities.
Yes.
Can you explain that to me? What do you mean by that? Like when you say that, what do you mean by the end of universities or the end of TRU as an academic institution?
Yes. So what I mean by the university as a bricks and mortar thing will continue to exist, but it won't exist as what would be called a part of the Enlightenment project. So universities, modern universities, came out of the Enlightenment, which was the idea that people come together and use reason to try to pursue the truth. And what's happened is because of a number of activist elements taking over the university, you cannot pursue the truth on certain subjects, on a whole bunch of different subjects, but Indigenous, non-Indigenous relations is one of those areas. The residential schools, you cannot say that the residential schools were not genocidal, and you certainly can't argue that that the residential schools provided some educational benefits. Questioning the remains of 215 children being found, this is another huge problem. So all those, at a university, you should be able to follow the evidence wherever it leads and not have a predetermined conclusion imposed upon you. But what's happening with all this activism is that you're being forced to accept certain dictates without question. And that's why I think that the Spectrum Street epistemology method that we brought to Thompson Rivers University, and I've also used at Brock University and the University of Regina, is so important because it breaks down the self-censorship that exists in universities. That's the huge problem, is many people don't believe these things, but they don't say anything because they're afraid of some kind of repercussions. And if you can just get the conversations going and show people, like what we did at Thompson Rivers, which is we had some very interesting interactions, which resulted in everyone involved understanding things more. But because of this big clampdown that you're seeing with this kind of idea of safety, which is not fear of violence or anything, it's about being exposed to an idea that you disagree with. We can't have these kinds of investigations anymore. And the pursuit of truth at the university, at all these universities, is over. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. And I will fight to the end to make sure universities are restored to their previous academic character. That's what I'm going to do, and I will not give in at all on this. And I have a lot of people behind me, and it just takes courage. That's all it takes, is courage. We're not yet in a seriously authoritarian system where you can be put in jail. Well, residential school denialism actually is trying to put people in jail for stating what they think is true. Hopefully we are beating that one back, but there's a bunch of other initiatives like this. That's not happened yet, so we still have time to fight back against this and restore the universities to what they used to be.
That's really, you said some really interesting things. What's the timeline for this project? When do you think the movie, I keep calling it a movie, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like an investigative documentary. We're hoping to go to other important areas, such as the University of the Fraser Valley, which has Sarah Bollier, of course, with her report, which has not been released.
Is that the ground? That's the ground penetrating radar.
Yes, and I noticed in one of the articles you wrote on June 5th that you mentioned that the band had said that they would be releasing that report at some point at the end of June 2021. That report has never been released, and we need to get access to that report. So we want to go to that university, as well the Simon Fraser Archaeology Department at in Burnaby. They evidently had 5 archaeologists who vetted Bollier's work, and so that's not going to, that's not appropriate for that to happen either. So we want to investigate that. And then finally, Victoria. So going to Victoria, where Dallas Brody, James Heller, all the kind of turmoil is happening in the Victoria legislature. So we're doing that over the summer. We're trying to get funding, of course, for this documentary, where that's what we're actively pursuing right now. So the more funds that we can raise, the more we have potential to go to these other locations. So this over the summer, we're planning on doing it.
Yeah. Cool. Question: who did you talk to while you were here?
We talked to. We did a lot of sort of stand-ups in front of different locations. We talked to Nicole Chabas, who is a professor at Thompson Rivers University. We talked to a representative from the art gallery. I don't remember her name. We tried to talk to the school board, but we were unsuccessful in doing that. We tried to talk to the RCMP. We were unsuccessful in doing that. We talked to Johnny Bandura, who is an artist who had an exhibit called The Missing, which is the 215. So that's an interesting aspect of the art gallery, that it was perpetuating this falsehood in 2023. Derek Pine. So we talked to Derek Pine, who was a professor at Thompson Rivers, who was fired for academic freedom, for trying to assert his academic freedom investigation. Yeah, that's one of the most outrageous cases that I've ever encountered. And we did interviews on the street with a number of people. That was kind of interesting, getting the sort of the residents of Kamloops. So we tried to interview members of the band. Casimir actually had agreed to be interviewed by Kathy Drake, but Kathy Drake went on holiday, and so she was unable to do it. And I said I would interview Casimir, but she hasn't followed up on that. But we'd love to interview the band and also the activists at Thompson Rivers, including Ted Gottfriedson Jr. and Gary Gottfriedson. The president of Thompson Rivers, we tried to interview him, but he was away. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff still pending. we're hoping to get some more interviews done, but we have quite a lot of material already that we can shape, but now it's a matter of getting the other kinds of locations.
Right. Very cool. Kathy, I talked to Kathy a little bit.
Oh, James Peters. I should mention James Peters. I'm not sure if you know James Peters.
I do know James, yeah.
Anyway, we managed to get access to the because he is one of the main spreaders of misinformation on this file and accused people who are being skeptical of being racist. Why else would you be skeptical? He said. Then racism. That was his view. So we wanted to interview him, and he did not want to be interviewed. But we got access to CFJC, and we're able to have an interaction with him in his office.
Okay.
You might want to ask him about that.
Yeah, I might.
He didn't want to correct the record. The spreader of misinformation, the one who got the scoop in May 27th, 2021, does not want to correct the record of the false information that he spread.
Interesting. I'm
Yep.
very interested to see what you got.
Yeah.
Kathy said you also talked to the mayor.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't do a lot of these interviews. Yeah. So the mayor,
Oh, okay.
because I was letting Kathy, spread her wings. Yeah, the mayor, that was very interesting. The mayor, because I just watched the footage of it. Yeah, I forgot about the mayor. Yeah, he's an interesting character. Anyway, he's not interested in the excavations. He doesn't want to have he doesn't want to pursue that. He doesn't think that's necessary, which I thought was interesting. We didn't really get him to talk about a lot of on point. He has a lot of interesting ideas, but they were, most of them were not, related to the Kamloops case. But still, it was interesting trying to pin him down on the excavations, whether he thinks the excavations should be necessary. Yeah.
Thanks, Francis. I really appreciate your time.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I don't know yet exactly what I'm doing with this, but
Okay.
it won't be like I'm not writing something like tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I'm going to do something.
Okay. Thanks very much, and you can watch the material on the Thompson Rivers on YouTube.
Okay, great. I'll check it out.
Okay.
What's your YouTube?
Francis Widdowson 1600.
WIDDOSSOWSON.
WIDDOWSOM. Okay.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Yep. Bye-bye. Oh, shit. Hello?
Hi, good morning. It's Kush.
Hi, Kush.